Okay, welcome back. This is the third session. I am playing for the Pillars of Eternity Lorethrough. It is December 11th, 2022. Last session, we made our way through our first Ingwithan ruin. We saw the old man in a robe convince his 4 followers to sacrifice themselves to some kind of machine that produced a purple wind. It looked like a Beowix. I don't think I said that last session. But yeah, it almost looked like that was a machine that was causing a Beowix, and the effect that it had on the people that were around it, like, sucked their souls out of their bodies, and they became, I was gonna say husks, but they were almost just dust. They were even less than husks. And we lost our 2 companions from the caravan, so we're the only survivor from the caravan from the beginning of the game. And then we made our way through Valewood. Got our asses kicked a couple times by a large group of outlaws and a bear, and then we made our way to Gilded Vale. So now that's where we are in Gilded Vale, which is very heavy with lore. I don't know if we're going to make it out of this in this session, but that's why I wanted to stop last time, because I just know how much stuff is going to be in here to talk about. So it's the first town. This town is the one that is being... travelers are told that they can have land in the area of Gilded Vale. So here we see the full map. When you go into an area without combat, then it's actually the full map is already mapped out for you. So we have the north exit here. We have Offer's House over on the west. Then a little bit further south we have the Blackhound Inn, Aloth, who we are going to pick up as a companion. We have the road west. We have the road south. Here we have the Temple of Aethys, another god. Here we have Adair, who is also going to be a part of our team, our party. We have Ingrid's house. We have a windmill. We have the road east, and we have the Blackhammer Smithery. So let's get going. And this tree here is also important, although it doesn't have a map marker. And we can see that the Temple of Aethys here is completely destroyed. There's no... there's some walls of what used to be walls anyway. There's no roof. It has been just completely destroyed. So let's get to it.
Absolutely.
You must be one of the new settlers. Welcome to Gilded Vale. You'll be pleased to know that we've had some recent vacancies here.
He glances at the gnarled, leafless monstrosity of a tree next to him. So, not a very warm welcome here. He says we've had some recent vacancies in a very sinister voice, and we can see these vacancies are caused by being hung from this tree. I'm going to say, I know I don't really put myself out there as Bjartur that much, but this seems extreme. So I'm going to say, are you mad knowing this place looks half empty? The only answer you hear is the buzzing of flies from the tree.
Of course, we'll need to make some inquiries first. The inestimable Lord Radric VII has taken great pains to insulate our town from Widewind's legacy. Have you ever sired a Hollowborn child?
Okay, so this is the first mention of the Plague of the Hollowborn, or Widewind's legacy. And there is a lot that goes into this. For one, we have the name Widewind, and why it's considered his legacy. And 2, we have the term Hollowborn. So, for now, I'm just going to go over Hollowborn. And then we'll wait a little while for Widewind's legacy to talk a little bit about who Widewind was, and why this is considered his legacy. But for now, let's go over what a Hollowborn is. So this is from the guidebook, under the section Widewind's Legacy. Like I said, we're not going to go exactly why it's called that, but that is the same thing as the Hollowborn. So it reads, after Widewind's demise, a generation of newborns came into the world without souls. The infants, dubbed Hollowborn, displayed no awareness whatsoever, a defect immediately apparent by the silence of their births. Watchers and specialists from Brackenbury attended to many cases and confirmed that the afflicted were empty of spiritual essence. Since the infants would not accept nourishment from any source, they wasted away in their cribs while families stood aside powerless. Popular opinion attributed the epidemic to the vengeance of Aethas. Many of the light god's churches were burned, his followers hunted down, while others wrongly blamed mothers of the afflicted youths. Solutions were explored, but the people demanded a quick fix rather than chance further losses. A hasty study concluded that the souls of animals could be transplanted into human bodies with some risk. So, a couple things about that. First, the Hollowborn is children that are literally being born without souls. So they basically just are completely inert. They don't really show any kind of emotion or any awareness even. And a lot of children are being born after the death of a man named after the death of a man named Widewin. And then Brackenbury is a reference to a sanitarium in Defiance Bay, the big city in this continent, where animancers, which is kind of like the art of manipulating souls, we'll go into that later on though, where animancers do some straightforward experiments and some kind of shadier experience on the manipulation of souls, and people from there started implanting animal souls into these hollowborn children, which at first seemed to work actually. They weren't perfect, but the hope was after years they would become more and more, they would act more and more human. And that is the exact opposite of what happened. And many, if not all, of the children who had been implanted with an animal soul became what are known as wicks. So that's the next thing I'm going to read. The wicks are from the bestiary. So strap in here from the bestiary. It's a little bit long what I'm going to read here. At the beginning of Widewind's legacy, people by the thousands sought the help of animancers. Untold numbers of children were born without souls and subsequently died in infancy. Putting a lost soul into a body was out of the question for most, since almost all the efforts resulted in the immediate awakening of the transplanted soul. The spirit of a recently deceased stranger would overtake the personality of its host body. So just a reminder that awakening is when a soul who has passed on makes itself known in a present body. So when lost souls were put into these hollowborn kids, they were immediately awakened and took over. Continuing on, animancers came up with a temporary solution, though many were wary of using it. If an animal soul were put into a soulless child's body, the child would have awareness, instinct, and volition. The animancers also believed that because animal souls have less individual personality and memory than human souls, the children would be able to develop into normal people given enough time. The children did gain awareness, instinct, and volition. This allowed many more of them to survive through infancy. They also developed faint personalities, though most of their interactions with others were markedly stunted and weird. While the children reached adolescence, many of them started to physically change, but not in the way that a pubescent child of their species should. Instead, they started to turn into wicks. Wicks here are spelt, by the way, W-I-C-H-T-S. Wicks appear to be boys and girls between 9 and 11 years of age with pale skin and purple undertones. Their eyes are a deep purple and glow with a white internal light. Their hair can be any color, but it is always stringy, dirty, and falling out in clumps. Their fingers are unnaturally long, ending in bony talons. Their teeth are similarly jagged and inhumanly large, surrounded by dark gums. A purple-tinted white light emanates from within their mouths whenever they open their jaws to full width. Though they wear clothing, the items are typically little more than rags. They also run barefoot, their toes misshapen, long, and ending in talons. During the early days of what came to be known as the Cruel Salvation, wicks were spotted at night prowling along roads between settlements. Charitable passerby seeking help what at first seemed beleaguered orphans only realized the depth of their error when it was too late. So yeah, sorry, I read that whole entry. I think it's important. So that's what wicks are. They are hollowborn children who were implanted with animal souls who at first seemed better. And after a time, when they started to get closer to adolescence, they started to transform. The description makes them almost sound like zombie children. They have skin that's kind of falling off. Their hair is very ragged, although they do have purple light. And purple light seems to be what a soul looks like here. So that's probably why. So the animal souls were incompatible with these Hollowborn children. So while I, Centigraphs, know what the Hollowborn is and the Wide Wind's legacy, which I actually do want to say about Wide Wind's legacy, it is considered like a curse from the death of this man. That is why it's called that. Although that's all I'm going to say about that for now. But even though I, Centigraphs, know what the Hollowborn are and what Wide Wind's legacy is, Viarter from the White That Wins doesn't. So I am going to say, what are you talking about?
An infant born without a soul, of course. Lord Raderick has made it his first priority to eliminate this scourge from our village.
So it seems like they only want people there who have not given birth or had a child that is Hollowborn.
I should warn you, stranger. Here in Gilded Vale, we have a special place for dissidents, charlatans, and those who would hide a curse in our midst.
He steps to the side and inclines his head ever so slightly toward the deformed tree. I don't know if that threat means that if we're hiding our own Hollowborn child when we move in, or if we just have had a Hollowborn child at some point, then that's why these people are hanging here.
His lordship's wife is with child and due any day now. Without his approval, I shan't be able to find you a permanent settlement. It will have to wait until after the birth. We can continue our interview then, after the bell tolls from Radrick's hold to signal my lord's new heir. In the meantime, you can find temporary accommodations at the inn just southwest of here.
So Radrick is the lord of these lands. His wife is with child due any day now, and everybody's obviously worried that the child's going to be Hollowborn. And after that is when we can start to inquire about our land. So let's see. So let's ask about the tree. That tree over there. Don't know how to pronounce this name. Urgit? Urgit? I'm going to say Urgit. Urgit doesn't even look over his shoulder. Ah, yes. Not everyone has accepted the measures necessary to keep the village safe. Ever since Lord Radrick banished the mothers of Hollowborn, some have taken up arms against him, and while he's searching for a cure, he's been beset with frauds and opportunists. We've had ciphers, wizards, and animancers come through town, taking the Lord's coin and promising the end of the curse. Lord Radrick finally decided to make an example of those who would profit from our tragedy. He points to the body of a dwarven woman. The latest was an animancer from the Valian republics who claimed to know techniques none of us had seen. And he's actually pointing at one of the bodies on the tree here. By now, we've seen it all. Okay, good, so I can ask all these questions. Let's ask about the Hollowborn and Widewind's legacy. I forget that you foreigners do not have this curse in your homelands. The Hollowborn has been a scourge upon the Deerwood for almost 15 years now. He lowers his voice to a whisper. Children born without souls. He shakes his head. Pitiful, dumb things that breathe barely, but do not truly live. Some say Hollowborn are a disease. Some say they are a punishment from the gods. He raises his empty hands. In truth, no one knows. But they began spreading after the Saints' War, and so the name Widewind's legacy stuck in honor of that foul, blasphemous pretender. His voice shakes with vitriol. I see. Lord Radrick's decrees may seem strict at times, but he has our best interests at heart. He nods. Still Urgit? If you have any other questions, do not hesitate to ask. It's important that everyone in Gilded Vale understand our rules. So what to tell him, we were close to a Beowix. I've been feeling strange ever since a close call with a Beowick. Is there someone in town who could help?
Whatever your problem, it sounds like a matter for an animancer. However, the only animancer in Gilded Vale isn't in any condition to speak. Consider yourself fortunate. After she failed Lord Radrick, We saw to it that she wouldn't profit from the misplaced trust of others. A bad cure is often worse than none at all.
So, an animancer who is hanging from the tree has failed Lord Radric somehow. We'll see how, maybe.
But if you're set on finding a bottle of troll piss or a dead Audra pebble to rub on your forehead, you're welcome to check her pockets. A little corpse stink is nothing when you're digging for shit. My advice, however, is to be satisfied that you escaped and leave it at that.
Before I got here, I saw several people conducting a strange ceremony near some ruins. He regards you carefully, says Urjat. You'll want to mind where you mention that. Trespassing in Gwithan ruins is illegal, not to mention dangerous. You probably saw someone attempting some new ritual to appease the gods. People will try anything these days. Bareth have mercy? We certainly have. Bareth is the god of the afterlife, although there are multiple, so it's not that straightforward, but we'll get into who Bareth is at some point. I don't really trust this guy, so I'm just going to say maybe so. And Urjat replies, like I said, it's best to stay away from those sorts of places. I'm gonna say
Keep
goodbye.
out of...
Says Urjat, nods curtly, and I kind of cut him off. He says, keep out of, so something's going to happen here.
Listen!
2 tolls. Let that be the last.
3. Gods have mercy.
It seems your arrival is ill-timed. 3 bells toll only for the death of a Radric. I fear Lord Radric's heir is lost, or else Hollowborn, and so lost all the same. You should tread carefully. Circumstances have changed a great deal.
So we get here just in time for Lord Radric to have a stillborn or hollowborn child. I'm just going to say, what do you mean here? Urjat replies, you come to us at a time of mourning. The legacy has struck at the heart of Gilded Vale. Our efforts to redeem ourselves in the eyes of Bareth must be redoubled. He sets a steady gaze on you. I'm going to say, does this affect the Lord's offer to new settlers? Urjat replies, I can be sure of nothing right now. I advise you get some rest, the inn, or stable for all I care. Find me afterwards. I will know more soon enough. Let's ask him what happens, too. He shrugs one bony shoulder. I will know more details when the messengers arrive. The vagaries of childbirth, perhaps. But that is not your concern. Farewell. Alright, here's a deer here.
Were you looking for someone in that tree? I could introduce you.
Strange way to talk about your dead. He looks up at the tree and breathes out. Half the town's up there, seems like. No right way to talk about it. I'm going to reply, I'm looking for someone who can help me feel better. Oh. Maybe I still have that illness from before. He gives an understanding nod as he takes a long draught from his pipe. My condolences. He exhales and turns his attention away, watching the village around him. Scattered between the roots are bracelets of twine and bead, wilting flowers, and notes half erased by the rains. One of the villagers mentions a man named Kolsk, or Kolsch. I'm not going to do much of this here, but these gold-plated NPCs are from the Kickstarter campaign. If you paid enough, then you would be able to create an NPC and put it in the world, and they all have some kind of tragic backstory as to how they died or a former soul of theirs died. And you can reach out for it and hear the story. Some of these are kind of long stories. Some of them are somewhat interesting, but I'm not going to read all of them. They are not really important for the overall lore of the world, and they just are there to provide some color. So I just wanted to make sure I introduced those, said something about it, mentioned it, and you realize why I wasn't going to spend so much time talking about them. Beneath the vines are crude carvings of sun rising over 3 stars. So we're in the basement of the Church of Aethys here. A rising sun and 3 dawn stars, the symbol of Aethys. Wertan. A man lies resting against the wall, lit by dim illumination of the fading sconces. He has a gaunt, fox-like aspect, and his face is pale and damp with sweat. One arm is held loosely against his side, sleeve soaked with blood. He gives you an anxious glance as you near, his features twisted with pain.
Hail and well met.
This is something he says to me because I'm a pale elf. Ha! Thought you were some... Never mind. Whoever you are, you've traveled a long way to reach a dark place. This temple isn't what it used to be, probably for the best. Times being as they are, he groans and shifts position, wincing. I'm no looter, if that's what you're thinking. Not one of the faithful, either. Just wanted to do some good, I suppose. Got my arm clawed up for it. Maybe you'd have better luck. What happened to you? I was trying to avoid the spiders. He breathes a quiet laugh. Ran into a skulder. Might have gone a little better for me if the beast hadn't knocked the sword right out of my hand. Good blade, too. Probably still lying there in the dust, he smiles wearily. But I'm not, so that's all right. It's not a bad wound, I think. Just hurts. What are you doing down here? The man points a finger upwards. These ruins around us used to be a temple of Aethys, the scattered god, a grand temple at that. His worshippers would come from all over the Deerwood, from Raed Saris even. Raed Saris is a land to the north, where many Aethys followers are, and where Widewind actually came from. Until the war, of course. Even then, this is Wertan, sorry. Even then, you'd get some of the stubborn ones, the ones that couldn't get it through their heads that their god was dead and gone. Now, let's just say go on. Once the legacy started, Lord Radric decided he'd be too lenient on the Aethasians. He said he had his people go in and put them to the sword, left them down there, buried under a heap of rock. After that, Radric ordered the temple sealed. It's been years like that, up until recently. Lord Radric hopes that if we rededicate the temple to a living god, then we'll be forgiven, and the legacy will end. See? He smiles wryly. He continues, but until then, the temple is as you see it, unguarded. That's where you come in, Wertan licks his lips. Those priests, maybe they didn't have a lick of sense between them, but they still didn't deserve to go like that. Chopped down in their god's house. It doesn't sit right with me. If you can get down there, find your remains, maybe we can finally give them a proper burial. Wertan breathes out. No small task. There's coin in it for you if you need motivating. I take it you aren't supposed to be in here. Wertan laughs bleakly. Well, I meant to be in and out and nice and quick. I'm not hurting anyone, it's just Lord Radric's forbidden anyone having anything to do with the scattered god. It'd be a little harder to explain to him than you. It's a good cause, though, isn't it? And you could make some coin in the process. Let's say I have some questions first. Kind of obvious why he can't do this himself. Who are you? Wertan offers you a weak grin. Name's Wertan. I've lived in Gilded Vale long enough to remember how grand it used to be. He shrugs and looks away. I used to help the temple sometimes, bring supplies. That's all. Let's just say I have no more questions. Those other questions don't seem like things Bjartur would ask. So, Let's say I'll find them. Then by the flame, I owe you a good turn. But listen, the temple's sealed off for so long it's crawling with creatures. But if you get past them, the priests would have been down to on the lower floor. They'll be there still, if they're anywhere. Those priests had all kinds of secret chambers. Switches in the walls, trick sconces, that kind of thing. Keep an eye out, and take care down there. I wouldn't want to have to send someone else after your remains. I'll wait here by the stairs and keep a lookout. Maybe try to patch myself up some. So we got a quest. Buried secrets. And then he stands up right after that. Let's read the quest here. It says Lord Radric has decided to rededicate Gilded Vale's abandoned Athasian temple to a new deity. The entrance to the temple has been cleared, allowing entry for the first time in many years. It says Wharton wishes for me to search the ruins for the remains of Athasian priests he tells me Radric's guards slaughtered many years ago. Wharton mentioned that the temple is full of secret compartments, that I will likely find the remains in the lowest floor of the temple. So he's looking for some Athasian priests that had been slaughtered. And here is Aloth. Aloth? I don't remember. You see 4 people gathered by the door at the inn. Their raised voices and chopping gestures suggest an argument reaching its climax. The first figure raises his hands for calm. The face is partially obscured by a hood, but his height and stature suggest an elf.
I meant no offense. Let's put this matter to rest over a round, shall we? My treat.
Hoping to soothe our pride with a few Adira coppers, eh? We don't need your coin.
So let's say what's going on. He's new. Maybe I'll say nothing, actually. An angry townsman. One of the other men glares at the hooded elf. His eyes are red from drink, but his gaze is focused. You've got a lot of gall mocking us in our own village. We don't take ill treatment from foreigners, especially not Adirans.
Go on. Say it again. I'm itching for an excuse.
Fie, you're itching for the kindling touch of your sister, you cocksfeather!
Obviously, that is a different voice from the first time he spoke.
I'll cut that barrel-licking tongue out of your head.
This is a misunderstanding. I didn't say whatever it is you think I said. We've nigh quarrel.
That's where you're wrong.
This is unnecessary. Wouldn't you rather be inside drinking than out here arguing? The angry townsman says, we don't want your charity either, foreigner. They squint at you through red, bleary eyes. It sounds suspiciously like you're defending him. Okay, so we got a fight here. Poor guys. Aloth. As the last of the attackers falls, the elf turns to you, the tension almost gone from his smooth face.
Not quite how I hoped to get to know the neighbors. Thank you for your timely assistance with that awkward situation.
You're welcome.
Courtesy is a rare pleasure in these parts, though your accent suggests that you are no more local than I.
Aloth straightens his hood, and you note the remains of fraying embroidery on his gloves. His boots are caked with the dirt of many months' travel, but the leatherwork beneath it is sturdy and fine.
Well, I suppose introductions are in order after that little fiasco. Aloth Corvisor, at your service.
How did you manage to get stuck out here? He laughs uncomfortably. That is something of a long story.
Well, I'm a wizard by training, and an adventurer by necessity. I was born in the Seathwood, part of the mainland of the Adir Empire, and both of my parents served the nobility, which afforded me an education for which I am grateful. However, there were no open positions in those houses, and so I decided to seek new means in a new land. And how exactly did you come to be here?
I was traveling with a caravan, but we were separated near some ruins.
In Gwithan Ruins? Oh, those can be dangerous places during the best of times, which these are not. And half the locals would arrest you for trespassing, and the rest would kill you outright. I'm curious, what exactly did you find there?
Tell him about the hooded figures. Several hooded figures operating a strange machine. Aloth goggles at you silently, apparently assessing your earnestness. Finally, he gives you a clipped, awkward laugh.
You do manage to find yourself in rather interesting predicaments.
Ask him about those three drunks there. Just how did you manage to cross those three drunks?
I'm afraid that was a matter of misunderstandings and mistranslations. It doesn't help that people in these parts remember their war with Adir like it was yesterday.
You did make a rather lewd suggestion regarding one of the aggressors and his own sister. Ah, that, Aloth says. He clears his throat and adjusts his sleeves. As I tried to tell them, they misheard me. Happens all too easily after a few pints, and the accent doesn't help. You say that I heard the same thing. For just a moment, he looks as if he's about to say something else. His expression brightens with mischief, but before he can speak, he forces a tight smile, biting his lips so hard you expect to see blood. Finally, his face relaxes, and he shakes his head. I should speak more clearly next time. My apologies. So, obviously, something else is going on here. Let's say, what are you doing in Gilded Vale?
Excellent question. I came looking for fresh air and cheap land. Instead, the magistrate gave me directions to the inn and a story about the local lord's expectant wife. But I take it that's a familiar tale.
That's exactly what happened to us. And you? I don't think I want to be too open with him just yet, so I'm going to say, like you said, I am also a settler.
Indeed. In that case, welcome to Gilded Vale, a true refuge from civilization.
You don't exactly look like a settler.
Begging your pardon, but neither do you. Yet, circumstances can find a person in the strangest of places.
I should get going.
As should I, given recent events. It's just as well. I've had enough of the watered wine and lumpy beds at the inn. They say even the owner tired of the place. Just up and left one day. It explains quite a lot about the upkeep. Perhaps I could join you. I could use a change of scenery, and I find it's better to travel in numbers.
I'm going to take him up on his offer to team up.
Excellent. I shall follow you.
So we have Aloth now, who is a second level wizard. He's a wood elf. He is gentry from Adir. Just realized how similar that pronunciation with Adir, who is also going to be a member of our party. He's got some spells. Archimir's Dazzling Lights overwhelms anyone in the area of effect with a brilliant and bewildered pyrotechnic display, decreasing their will and leaving them dazed. Fan of Flames creates a cone of fire in front of the caster, causing burn damage to anyone in the area of effect. Kalikoth's Sunless Grasp. The caster's hands become so cold as to freeze what they touch, does freeze damage to a target, and reduces its accuracy. Minoletta's Minor Missiles. Summons 3 spell missiles that batter the target, inflicting crush or corrode damage. And Wizard's Double. Creates a duplicate of the caster to distract enemies, granting the caster a high deflection bonus until he or she is hit or crit. Blast Talent. Generates a blast on the target when using a wand, rod, or scepter, doing a modest amount of damage on all enemies in a small area around the target. Interesting. So, does he have one of those weapons equipped? He has a scepter. Good. Here's his grimoire. Oh, so he doesn't have Wizard's Double equipped. But I'm going to, I don't think he's going to be using Fan of Flames that much. So let's get that out of here and put in Wizard's Double. Or I wonder if I can I do like 2? No, can't. Okay. Oh, gruesome. Got a dead body on the ground right next to us. Let's head into... The windows are clouded with a haze of accumulated smoke and cooking grease. And this is the Blackhound Inn. The floorboards are sticky with spills that no one has bothered to clean. Some kind of brown slop is congealing in these dishes. It smells burnt.
Welcome.
Pasha says, "Oh, greetings and welcome to the Blackhound Inn." The innkeeper bows her head curtly. "Please sit where you like. Would you like a drink or a room? We have 2 available at the moment. I'm afraid we can't offer up much by the way of a good meal today," she sighs, "unless you're fond of cold porridge." Let's go. We're asking some questions about what this place is like, so let's know more about the Blackhound. Pasha replies, "Really? Well, let me see. The actual building's been here for years, but the Blackhound's fairly new. We get a lot of new faces in here, too. Fewer than we used to, I'll admit. I used to work the tables, actually, until the old owner up and left. Nobody's sure what happened to him. Even left his poor hound behind." That's the name, see? The Blackhound? It's still sitting upstairs, pining after him. Poor old girl. Place ended up in my hands somehow, she laughs. My very own inn. A lot of hard work involved, but it's been worth it so far. Let's ask for some work. We need to start making some money. Pasha replies, well, I wouldn't say I can speak from experience, but we do have certain sorts coming by looking for work from time to time. If you want to hire someone on, I'd be happy to send them your way. Let me see what I have to work with. Oh, so this is just to hire adventurers so that you can actually create.
Hail and well met.
You serve only porridge. Aloth looks at you and shakes his head quickly. It isn't by choice, I assure you, Pasha replies. We used to serve some of the finest meals in the Deerwood. They have a damnable run of luck is all. It's been a bad season for the crops and we're running low on supplies. I sent Tenfrith up north to stock up. Tenfrith's our cook, you see, an artist with a good roast. But it's been days since he was supposed to return, and we haven't seen any sign of him. I think Tenfrith was the cook that was with those outlaws who kicked our butts, so he's still up there probably. She sighs again. I've only just taken over from the last owner myself. I don't know what I'll do if he doesn't turn up. I could try to find him for you. Really? Her face brightens. I'd be grateful if you did. He was traveling through the Valewood. It's probably nothing, a broken wheel maybe, but I do worry. You see him safely home, and I think everyone here would sing your praises. Nobody much likes my porridge. Let's just leave for now. What we asked for. We got a new task late for dinner to find Tenrith. Some green and milk in this chest here. An Orland server. 2 gold-plated NPCs over here. Scroll for Fan of Flames. Some copper skates. The skate is the standard currency used in the Adir Empire in areas under their direct control. Like the Deerwood Pond, it is a small copper coin. So the skate and the pond are both the same value, 1 CP. And here we have a book. Development of the Crucible Knight, Part 2, Senior Ranks. What should I do? I know I wanted to read all the books in this playthrough. I wonder if we should wait for part 1 before we read part 2. So I'll just hold on to this book for now, and then when I get to development of A Crucible Knight part 1, we'll read that, and then read also development of the Crucible Knight part 2. This little symbol here means I'd be stealing, so I don't want to do that. Spoons hang by the fire, coated in brownish gunk. This place seems kind of gross. A lot of dirt everywhere. This one's got a different name. I wonder if it's just... The drunkard says, "And who are you then? Another fool come to answer Radric's invitation? Our great lord has had my sister run out of town after the boy was born. She was the only family I had left. Not sure where she is now." Blazes, I need another drink. Got some carousers. Roaches scatter and flee under the crates. More grossness from the inn. A very nice place. Grab a drink, friend. Not much else of worth in this town, says the woman from Thane. Hey, we said we wouldn't mention Thane. I don't know what Thane is. I have to look that up at some point. Gold-plated NPCs. That's 3 lockpicks. Maybe I'll wait to see before I get somebody that's got better mechanics. Crammed behind the books is a drawing that shows Aethys and Lord Radric in a compromising position. The Deerwood Part 1, Early Colonial History. Alright, so let's grab these lockpicks. So, interesting here, it gives you 3 lockpicks, which at the lowest mechanical score is exactly how much you need to open up this chest over here. Alright, so let's read The Deerwood Part 1, Early Colonial History. No other land has such a wild and bloody recent history. From colony to Palatinate to Free Republic, the Deerwood has undergone a trial by fire to emerge as a powerful force of the Eastern Reach. Let's look up that word Palatinate before we go further. I did look this up when I was reading some of the material for this book, but I think I would rather than just say what it means. I'd rather actually look up the definition again to make sure I don't get anything wrong. So, a Palatinate, a territory under the jurisdiction of a Count Palatine. A Palatine is of an official or feudal lord having local authority that elsewhere belongs only to a sovereign. So, a Palatinate then is a land that is under the control of a local lord, but also a sovereign, which is probably not close by. So the Edir, I believe it was the Edir Empire, has had control over the Deerwood for a little while. Their king was the king there, but he was across the sea. Think of it as the king in England, while there were English colonies in the United States of America. That they were under the rule of the King of England, but they had local rulers as well. So I think that's what a Palatinate is. Moving on. From colony to Palatinate to Free Republic, the Deerwood has undergone a trial by fire to emerge as a powerful force of the Eastern Reach. Deerwood's history actually begins in Edir in 2602 AI. Adira explorers returned from the journey across the ocean with tales of the treasures they'd found. They discovered countless ruins scattered through the forest, as well as plains to the north of the trees that would be perfect for growing Vorlas. Vorlas is a purple dye-producing plant. There was a problem, however. The locals were hostile, and there was potential for conflict. The Fairkening of Adir, Fairkening is the first king. The Fairkening of Adir knew that this was too good of an opportunity to pass up and sent more explorers to scout and map the area. So those ruins were one of the main reasons they came over here, which is important. Those are the Ingwithan ruins. Exploration continued over the next 20 years. Small groups of explorers traveled back and forth between Adir and this new world, with a handful of colonists setting up small camps to establish a base for the explorers to work out of. Conflicts with the locals, who the Adirans learned are called the Glanfathans, were rare, but frequent enough for the Firkaning to send a small squadron of guards to help protect his citizens. These guards established a central base on the river of the western section of the woods. This settlement would eventually become the city of Deerford, upon which the modern-day village of the same name is presently built. Once that base was established, the first permanent Adiran settlement began north and west of the Vale River. Over the next 3 years, thousands of Adirans made the trek from Edir to this new land. The Glanfathans, who seemed to revere the ruins scattered through the forest, caused a few problems with some of the settlements, especially those founded near the ruins themselves. These were easily taken care of by the colonists with the help of the Imperial Guard. The Adirans, in order to further their foothold in the area, reduced the cost of production, and in an attempt to keep the Glanfathan population under control, started making slaves out of any Glanfathans captured during the uprisings. This resulted in a great increase in tensions between the two groups. With the population of the area growing, an official governmental structure was established by the Firkaning. He appointed several earls to preside over the land and assigned them thanes to help rule their territories, and they called the new Greyfrem the Deerwood. Deerford remained the center for the center of the Imperial Guard, but the settlement in Purewood Gulf, New Dunrid, was the true seat of power for the area. Sitting at the edge of the ocean, forest, fertile farmland, and a river that runs from coast to White March, settlers flocked to the area hoping to establish names for themselves. Adir began to spread across the new land. So, New Dunrid, I believe, was now called Defiance Bay. And we get a little bit of the history of Edir here, who were a imperialistic country that came over, thought they could find some riches in the Ingwithan ruins that were here, and moved over here to plunder for riches. They set up some local lords, but the king was still the king of this new land, new for them anyway, because there were settlers that were here, the Glanfathans, who didn't like when they would plunder the ruins, the Ingwithan ruins. That was something they had promised they would keep safe to the old Ingwithans, and they take that seriously. So we see here the beginnings of Adirans kind of seeing the Glanfathans as like less than human almost, where they actually enslaved the people that were here. I said earlier, a Palatinate, when talking about what a Palatinate is, I used America as a way to say that the King of England was still technically the king before the Revolutionary War, but there were like local rulers and stuff like that, and that's what's going on here. Also, very much like America, they have no respect for the people that live here. They see them as savages, and they enslave the people who are here. So also some parallels with America and how it got started there, and several imperialistic nations and what they did to the locals in the areas by spreading propaganda that the locals were barbarians and they're going to kill you and everything like that, when how do we know? They were just there to protect their land, and that's what's going on here. That was the beginning of the Deerwood, although it does kind of mention that it's going to change. It says from colony to Palatinate. So there's a difference between colony and Palatinate. I wonder what the difference would be. To Free Republic. So at the end of this part 1, they are still part of the Edir Empire, but eventually they are going to be a Free Republic. Okay. Let's open this. We just got 3.
I'll have it in no time. The work of a moment.
It's a nice little hat there. Let's talk to the guest. Please leave me be. I'm full sickness with what I have seen of this place and its people. Yeah, me too. So I can't unlock this one. 10 years of dawn. 10 years I tilled the vorless leaf, and 10 years I told myself that living in St. Widwin's footsteps would bring me rebirth. Each dawn I'd pray that if thou art in darkness, he shall bring thee light, and each yet night would bring the same emptiness. For my decade of living as a simple dye farmer, all I have to show for it is a great deal of purple clothing. Aethys has not spoken to us since he appeared as St. Widwin. It was my hope that Aethys would claim me as his next vessel, but alas, the child of light remains silent. Every day I practice the ritual of banishing the shadows of the unfaithful, and every day I work my fields in solitude, without sign of Aethys returning. If thou art in darkness, he shall bring thee light, but how long must I remain lost in the long night of abandonment? Is this my punishment for keeping my faith a secret? Is Aethys hiding from me until I shout my reverence for all to hear? Surely he must know that the dear Woodens now hate him and his followers. My countrymen are quick to blame all that was terrible about the saints' war on those still faithful to Aethys. Should they not be angry at the Raid Saris soldiers? Do the dear Woodens not realize that to dismiss the god of rebirth and redemption is to prevent all hope of healing? As I pen these words, I know that I must continue to till the dye leaf. I will awake each day with hope. If thou art in darkness, he shall bring me light. Each day I will pray that the dawn stars visit me, just as they visited St. Widwin in his field of Vorlis. Will they come to me as they came to St. Widwin, as a man and 2 women, luminescent and perfect? I am told they come to presage new times. I am told many things, and I struggle to find the faith and believe it all. And yet, each morning the sun rises in the eastern sky, and each morning Aethys illuminates my simple plot of land, casting away the shadows of all the unfaithful in his golden gaze. I thank thee, Aethys, for all the springs I've had, and all that will come. I am in darkness. Please bring me light. So we get more mention of St. Widwin here. Where is it? It says, every day I practice the ritual of banishing the shadows of the unfaithful. And every day I work my... That's not what I was looking for. Here it is. Aethys has not spoken to us since he appeared as St. Widwin. It was my hope that Aethys would claim me as his next vessel, but alas, the child of light remains silent. So here we get a hint at who St. Widwin was. He was a person who Aethys came to and kind of claimed as a vessel. So St. Widwin started life as a normal man, but eventually was taken over by a god. So he was actually a person who was walking the world, but he was actually Aethys. And there were people that followed him because of that. So the Raid Sarans heavily worship the god Aethys, and they are now vilified because of St. Widwin and what happened during the Saints' War. But again, we'll probably read more books about it, so that's all I'm going to say about that for now. So that was just 10 years of dawn. Whoops. These bones are covered in tiny bite marks. Oh, and here's the black hound. This hound stares intently at the covered window, head cocked, as if waiting to hear a particular sound. It looks up when you approach and whines a low note, tail wagging slightly. Pet the dog, of course. The dog's tail thumps happily against the floorboards. Say, I could use a good dog. Here, girl. The dog's ears perk up. It trots over to you and barks happily. You have gained an item, Black Hound, added to inventory. Yay, we have a dog now. Gonna trade out the dog for the pig. This small dog has a glossy black coat and an affable disposition. She trots along your heels, gazing up devotedly whenever you come to a stop. So now we have a dog following around us. Let's go outside. I think this is just a deck. Yeah. body's gone. Now, let's get a room.
Gods keep you.
You don't have that much gold yet, so we're going to use the common room. Although you can see here that if you rest in a nicer place, then you get some bonuses. Your sleep is restless and fevered, assaulted by hisses and whispers, blanketed with a suffocating anxiety. You open your eyes to awaken and find yourself in front of Gilded Vale's gallows tree, the creaking of its ropes growing louder in your mind until the sound is deafening. Hanging from the tree is an old dwarf woman whose face is shriveled inward like moldering fruit. Her head hangs limply to one side. As you look at her, she looms larger and larger in your mind until she is mere inches from your face. The dwarf woman, I believe, was the animancer that Urjat pointed out before. Suddenly, her head snaps up and her eyes open, and they are empty, and behind them is a vast nothingness that makes your stomach drop. Her mouth slowly parts with a gust of rancid air. She speaks a word. Watcher. You jolt awake, the foul smell of the dwarf woman's breath still permeating your nostrils. Sweat runs down your face in thick droplets, and your skin is soaked from head to toe. You remember the woman. You remember seeing her decaying face when you spoke with the magistrate. He called her an animancer. Though it fills you with a new queasy apprehension, you feel a strange compulsion to see this woman once more, if only to confirm she is truly dead. Gain some experience for that. Okay. So a little vision. Let's go check out that tree. So we see the purple light glowing here. Caldara di Baranzi. Caldara di Baranzi. The squat, distended body of an elderly dwarf woman dangles from thin, crooked bough that sags at the tug of her noose. The bloated purple flesh of her neck, worn away in patches like moth-eaten linen, bulges over the rope that suspends her, and her lifeless head lolls forward rigidly from one side to the other when the breeze shifts. You perceive a faint glow around her that casts no light on its surroundings, but there is a tepid warmth to it, and you feel somehow that you could reach out and touch it, not with your hands, but with some aspect of yourself that has no worldly dimension. Going to reach out for the woman. You take a deep breath, clearing your mind, focusing on your objective. As you exhale, you feel yourself spreading out toward the hanging woman, perceiving all that lies between you and her with new unfamiliar awareness. Once you have expanded enough to reach her, there is a sudden jolt to your mind, a ringing, electric surge of images and words and sounds. Involuntarily, you shut your eyes and feel yourself being pulled down to some deeper consciousness in a space occupied only by you and the hanging woman. And when you open them again, she is staring at you with eyes clouded in a milky fog, her body still swaying in a wind you no longer feel from a tree that stands planted in a misty void. The woman gives a slow nod of her head, the rope creaking as she does so, and she smiles at you.
Have you come here for me, dear, or have you gotten lost? Ah, it is both, I think. Yes?
How are you able to speak to me?
Is that what we're doing? Perhaps it just seems that way. Perhaps it is the easiest way for your mind to make sense of it. I think it is a very good choice.
Am I imagining this?
No, I think not. A pity that. It would be simpler. A mercy, even. To not have to wander anymore, no? Alas, we are here, you and I, wherever here may be.
So I'm going to ask about how I survived the BOX, which I believe is a reference to when we left those ruins there and we saw the old hooded figure sacrificing 4 of the followers. And our 2 companions also died in that.
Did you now, dear? My, that would be something, wouldn't it? Could be luck, could certainly be. A storm can be a careless thing. Or maybe it got its hands around your soul but couldn't pick it up. A soul can be heavy if it stayed in one piece through its time. Strong souls, we call them in the trade. Cold, I mean. Called them. Those days are all behind me, no?
So she's suggesting that we survived the Beowicks because we have a strong soul. And she says a soul can be heavy if it stayed in one piece through its time. In other words, we have in our body a soul that has been around for a very long time. I need to understand something that's happened to me. She nods, a look of pity on her face as though consoling a child.
The world looks a little different than it used to, is that it? Feels like you're noticing things for the first time that have always been there. You have seen past the shroud. It only takes an instant. Your soul remembers, yes? Remembers how it sees when it leaves the body, like being reminded of a dream you had forgotten. You are a watcher now, and a watcher you will stay.
So that's the second time we've been called a watcher, and the first one was in the vision we just had, where a vision called us watcher, and now she's calling us a watcher, so I'm going to ask what that is.
What indeed? Long hours have many animancers spent studying such things. Not I, though. Not I. I'll tell you what I know, though, since fair is fair, and here we are visiting, you and I, and it reminds me of better times. Souls pass on, some say through Audra stones, which are the blood veins of the world. They leave the world for a time and are reborn into it, sometimes more than they were before, but usually less and seldom the same. For all souls there is a time where they do not live, yet have not passed on. And those souls roam the world, same as you or I, either living or lost. But no one sees them because they have forgotten how. A watcher sees, though, knows what to look for. And sometimes they know a person just by looking at them. Know where they've been in ages past when their bodies were other bodies. See memories even their honor can't recall. A wonder to behold when all goes well. A wonder!
So a watcher has an ability to see past lives of the soul that inhabits a person. What do you mean when all goes well?
Oh, nothing to be afraid of, I'm sure. It's just much to take in for some. Sometimes there's trouble sleeping or other difficulties.
She smiles at you reassuringly, fanning out a tuft of long whiskers that sprouts from one of her cheeks.
You should see old Merwald. He could tell you much more than I. A watcher just like you. Helped many in his day. Took up in an old keep no one would claim. Not far, not far. Kadnua, beyond the Black Meadow. He will welcome the company.
So we learn of Merwald here, and we learn of Kadnua. Both are important people, but Merwald is someone that we should speak to if we want to know more about what it means to be a watcher. Let's ask her about what she was talking about before, about how souls break apart.
Oh, yes. Entropy. Rimagan's work. We know little of why or how. We lose pieces of ourselves when we die and pick up pieces of others when we are born again, but less than what we lost. We tried to stop it with the animantic sciences, but with little success. No.
Rimergand is another god. When I talked about Bareth before, I said that Bareth was the god of death, but Rimergand also kind of has something to do with death. We'll get into more about gods later.
A very small few resist Remergan's influence and stay together through some force of defiance, at least for a time. But they all succumb eventually, I think.
So the implication here is that we have a soul in us that has stayed more or less intact for a very long time, and that's how we were able to survive the BOX. I want to know something about you.
Me? I'll bore you to tears, though.
Who are you?
And here I thought you'd come to visit me in particular. Caldara de Baranzi, of the Valian Royal Academy of Animantic Sciences. Not the greatest of their number, but I came here all the same because this was where help was needed.
What happened to you? She laughs. A rasping, choked cackle escapes between rows of buttery yellow teeth, causing her body to bob up and down with each spasm. Seeing your blank expression, she catches herself.
Oh, come now. Such a question. As though the answer were plain as a rope tied for strangling. Allow an old dwarf her last bit of cheer. Well, I came where I was needed, didn't I? Offered my services to Lord Radric for a pittance. A humble pittance. I was to examine the Lord's wife, see why the gods have seen fit to poison her womb. Studied her for months, looked high and low for impurities, tested her valence, the permeability of her essence. Do you know what I found?
Before I click tell me, Urjat said before that she had been hanged because she was not able to help Lord Radric's wife. So apparently they saw something in her, they wanted some help, and since she wasn't able to help, she was hung for it. So I'm going to ask her to tell me what she found.
Nothing at all. A healthy woman, head to toe, blessed with a beautiful soul. Such a sweet woman, too. Meek, but warm-hearted. A few months' time, and the lord of the house demanded answers. For a time, I told him what he wanted to hear. Oh, yes, my lord. She is riddled with imbalances. I must have time to cure her. As the birth drew near, he grew impatient, as lords do. And this is where I've ended up.
So self-fulfilling, well, for Radric, a self-fulfilling prophecy there. He was convinced something was wrong with his wife, and then when the Animancer couldn't help her, even though nothing was wrong with her, he had her killed, had her hung. So I'm going to ask her, what's an Animancer?
A student of the soul. Something so basic, yet so poorly understood. But so many breakthroughs have been made in my lifetime. Had been made. Had been. To hear the locals tell it, we're a gang of soul manglers that preys upon the weak-minded. And the worst of us are. But the best of us? The best? Inspirations, miracle workers. My parents were soul twins. Miserable before they met, empty inside. It was an Animancer who helped one find the other. Turned their lives around. You wouldn't believe the stories. Amnesiacs helped to remember their lives. The suicidal brought back from the brink of oblivion. The elderly afforded extra moments to say their goodbyes. How soon we forget when we're afraid.
So Animancers here have a connection to the soul, and we see that they are both desired for help, but also hated and untrusted. And Caldara here implies that that's because some Animancers are pretty horrible, but as we've seen, even with her, Radric had her killed. So not only are they blamed when they do something bad, they are blamed when they can't help too. So they are very powerful, but they are also very untrusted.
It's a fascinating science. A fascinating time to be alive in a place like Deerwood that does not control the research, no? I love the Valian republics for many things, but their recent caution will leave them behind, I fear.
I had other questions, and that's it.
Of course, dear.
Farewell.
Goodbye, my dear. It was lovely visiting.
Caldera closes her eyes and her head slumps forward over the noose, and your surroundings seem to bleed into your vision for some unknown place of waiting. Bjartar was granted Crucible of the Soul. Aloth looks at you through narrowed eyes. Are you all right? You seemed lost just now. I'm going to say... This happens a lot. You'll have to get used to it. He folds his arms. That's good to know, but I don't suppose you could tell me what that was all about. I'm a watcher. Aloth arches his eyebrows. Oh, Aloth's arched eyebrows recede into his hood. Well, that is interesting. He gives you a sly grin, and I expect this has nothing to do with the hooded figures in the ruins, hmm? In any case, I appreciate your honesty. Since we're traveling together, it's probably wise for us to share these things. Let's see if Aloth knows anything about Watchers. Only that they're rare, and that they seem to have unique insights into certain soul conditions. He coughs, as you just demonstrated. Let's continue on. Alright, so it just leveled up. So the purple glow from Caldera is gone now. Which seems to suggest that the soul has left. So I was kind of wondering as we were talking to her, because a Watcher has a connection to souls even from the dead. So does a soul hang around in a body after it died so that it can talk to a Watcher? Were we just talking to a fragment of a soul that was left? Because she also said that some souls are fragmented as they go through life, as they die, and we are special because our soul has not been fragmented. So is the soul just there for a little while after? Does it feel like it has something to share, so it won't leave until it actually shares it? Or was it just a fragment, or what? I don't know that there are answers to those questions, but they were just things I was thinking about as we were talking to Caldera hanging from the tree there. Let's level up. I'm going to keep with survival, because I'm a hunter. Going to go up with lore. And that's all the points we can spend for now. Have one left over. We get some power, level 2 powers now. So let's take a look at these. Amplified Thrust bounces psychic energy harmlessly off the target and onto the closest nearby enemy, causing pierce damage and violently pushing them backwards. Interesting. So that's something I can cast off of one of my allies, and then it hurts an enemy nearby. Oh, can we get 2 new spells? Nice, we can get 2 new spells. Mental Binding overwhelms the target's mental ability to communicate with its own body, paralyzing it and causing its soul to emit a shockwave that can leave nearby enemies stuck. I like that one. I think I'm going to take that one. Mind Blades co-ops the target's essence, generating a slashing blade of force that attacks them before leaping up to 5 additional targets. Now it says additional targets. I don't know if those targets are only enemies. Phantom Foes invades the minds of targets in the area of effect, causing them to believe they are surrounded by phantom foes. Leaving them flanked for the duration. Flanked means deflection is reduced by 10. Psycho-Vampiric Shield. The Cypher uses the target's strength of mind against it, stealing a portion of its resolve in order to better deflect incoming attacks. Interesting. And finally, Recall Agony causes the target to relive the psychic trauma of an injury moments after receiving it, experiencing the damage all over again. So I want to do, was it Amplified Thrust? No, it was Mental Binding, I think. Yeah, mental binding and recall agony is what I want here. And these level 2 require 20 focus, whereas level 1 require 10 focus. And that's it. I also want to check to see, we got, what was it called? Crucible of the Soul. The Watcher unravels the vital essence of his or her enemies, gaining endurance in the process. Oh, so this is an action. I can use once per rest. Okay, so it's like a heal. I also have Gaun's Pledge, which is another heal. Restores a moderate amount of endurance to the wearer each time it's used. That's 2 per rest. Second Wind, 1 per encounter, plus 20. So I have a lot of ways to increase my endurance. And the Soul Whip is passive, causes the Cypher's weapons to generate a field of parasitic energy that lashes out at the target, increasing damage inflicted and generating focus for the Cypher. This is how I get my focus so that I can cast the spells that I cast. Okay. Let's level up Aloth now. Wow, he's got a lot of lore here. Let's bring up his mechanics. And, I'm going to bring up his lore as well. And we can get a couple... Wow, there's a lot here. Let's read what it says about wizards. Wizards have access to a variety of offensive and personal defense spells. Unlike priests and druids, wizards learn individual spells that they store in and cast directly from their grimoires. See this? It's an enormous grimoire there. Grimoires can hold only 4 spells of each spell level, which motivates wizards to keep multiple grimoires for different needs. Every 2 levels, wizards gain access to an additional set of spells. However, they can automatically learn one spell of any level they can access each time they advance. Wizards also have the option of learning spells from grimoires they find or buy. Initially, their spells can be cast a limited number of times per rest. As wizards gain power, their weaker spells eventually shift to per encounter use. Interesting. Okay. Well, let's go through these. What are our options here? Bewildering Spectacle creates a bizarre and perplexing visual distraction, confusing enemies in the area of effect. I like that confuse effect there. Binding Web spins a resilient, viscous web throughout the area of effect, leaving unfortunate victims stuck inside. Bulwark Against the Elements creates a mystical shield around the caster, suffusing them with bonuses to burn, freeze, corrode, and shock damage reductions. Combusting Wounds causes enemies' wounds in the area of effect to ignite, inflicting additional burn damage over time each time they are wounded. Consulhaut's Corrosive Siphon. Consulhaut is a very famous wizard. Eats away at the target's spirit, inflicting corrosive damage and converting that essence into endurance for the caster. I like that one. I'm going to keep that one highlighted. Curse of Blackened Sight shrouds the target's vision in total darkness, blinding them. Fetid Caress. The target becomes paralyzed, afflicted with the boiling pustules of foul-smelling liquid that erupt from their skin, sickening those nearby. Gross. Infused with Vital Essence. Infuses the caster with vitality, giving them a temporary increase with maximum endurance and health. Merciless Gaze. The caster becomes able to see an enemy's weaknesses and vulnerabilities as though they were physically tangible, increasing the chance of landing a critical hit. I think that's just a critical hit for me, not for everybody. Miasma of Dull-Mindedness. A cloud of heavy fog settles in the minds of those in the area of effect, dulling senses and wits. That's everybody, so I don't want to do that one. Mirrored Image creates duplicates of the caster to distracted enemies, granting a high deflection bonus, which is reduced with each hit taken. Necrotic Lance creates a lance of pure necrotic energy, causing corrode damage instantly and over time. Is that a single target? Yeah, I think so. Ray of Fire creates a scorching ray of flame between the caster and the target, inflicting continual burn damage to the target and anyone caught in the ray. And then Rolling Flame creates a rebounding ball of fire, inflicting burn damage upon anyone in its path. That one is pretty damaging. So I want that Consulhaut's Corrosive Siphon. I think there's another one up here I was thinking about. Or maybe it was Necrotic Lance. Yeah, Necrotic Lance. Okay. 10.
$17 and a half.
This is a deer. Smell of pipe smoke, at once earthly and sweet, winds its way into your nostrils. Your eyes trace the smoke to its origin, where you find a broad man with straw-colored hair leaning against a mossy rock wall, his pipe held to his lips with one meaty hand. He looks you directly in the eye, but the look is not aggressive. He regards you with a peculiar smirk.
17 and a half. Well, could be 18, depending on how you count the dwarf woman.
All racist there. What are you talking about?
The people hanging from the tree. 18 of them. Well, last I counted, anyway.
Eloth frowns. Is that what you people do for fun around here?
Name's Adair. Though to the people around here, might as well be 19. Don't think I'd put you much higher than 22, 23 tops. You look like the sort that likes to get involved.
What was that about a dwarf?
The dwarf woman. You were trying to figure out whether to count her as a full person. I think you oughta.
Why would he say that? What makes you think I was interested in the dwarf woman? He looks at you a moment, his brow arched, his smirk broadens.
I was smoking over here, saw you staring at her. Twice I refilled my pipe. You never so much as blinked. Your mouth was so slack I took you for a Radric at first.
So he recognized us looking at her and probably acting a little bit weird. So let's see. I'm not exactly trusting of him yet, so I'm going to say I've been out of sorts lately. Adair responds, "Of course. We all got our bad days when we stand perfectly still and stare at corpses for a while without blinking." Ask him, do you know what a watcher is?
Careful, friend. Best not use that word round here. Could be any number of Radric bootlickers within earshot. Ciphers, animancers, watchers. Same thing in the eyes of folks around here, Radric especially. They come through these parts all the time with their cures, preying on the desperate. None of them are who they claim to be. Of course, seeing you with that funny look, I'd be halfway inclined to believe you were having some kind of communion with that dwarf. Either case, maybe I'm not 19 after all. No offense.
So he's assuming he will be hanged, and he called us 22 or 23, meaning that we're going to be hanged in a little while. So he doesn't have much faith in living here. So let's say none taken. He replies, "Good. They don't mean it personal when they hang folks here. I have to remind myself."
The town's had it in for me for a long time now. Only fellow who ever stuck up for me, well, he's number 18 up there. My headman on the farm. Used to be my captain during the war.
So he was in a war? He was a soldier? Let's ask what the town has against you.
Pick the wrong god. That's what it comes down to. Used to be a lot of Aethys worshippers in Gilded Vale. That mess of rocks over there, that was a temple to him, to give you some idea.
So he was an Aethys worshipper. And we know how this town thinks of Aethasians. They were the people that were killed in the basement of this church.
Then one day, somebody named Widewind shows up on Deerwood's doorstep. Says he's the living flesh of Aethys. Got an army with him. Suddenly, Aethys isn't so popular in these parts. My brother Woden and me, neither of us believed it. No way was that Aethys. He enlisted, then I did too. But, he didn't make it back.
So, another reference to Widewind here. The living flesh of Aethys. He seemed to fight, and he lost his brother in this war.
After the war, people took to punishing Aethys worshippers, accusing them of treason. Got real ugly, especially after the legacy started. Folks needed someone to blame. I was safe because I fought, but then this rumor starts that my brother, that he was on the wrong side. And I wasn't so safe anymore. Until my headman stepped in and said they'd have to hang him to get to me.
So, the legacy, Widewind's legacy, and he says folks needed someone to blame. So it's called that because this guy who said that he was the living flesh of Aethys, they believe that it's a curse after his death, so they call it Widewind's legacy, and they blame Aethasians for the Hollowborn curse.
Seems that's no longer a concern. Of course, the townies don't do the hanging these days, but when Raedric's men come, they got no problem doing the pointing.
Aloth glances at you and lowers his voice. You can see why I was eager to leave. This is a good question here. If you're next to be hanged, what are you still doing here? Adir gives half smile. Drinking, mostly. Point of fact, I'm on my way out. Just haven't figured out where I'm going yet. Not a lot of places out there that don't think Widewind's legacy started with Widewind. I don't know. Let's ask him about the war. See if there's any more information he can tell us. He says, Saints' War, only one in my lifetime. Fellow decides the living incarnation of Aethys, overthrows Raed Saris, marches on Deerwood, so we give him a Deerwooden hello. A Deerwooden hello sounds like a get the hell out of here, we're gonna kill you kind of thing. And he also says it's the only one in my lifetime, hinting at the history of conflict in the Deerwood. We'll probably get into several of the other wars as we go through the playthrough. Let's say, what's a Deerwooden hello?
We blew him up.
This is a reference to the God Hammer bomb. We'll go over that in more detail. But I just wanted to make sure you knew that I knew what he was talking about here, even though Bjartur might not know. I think Bjartur would know who Aethys is. But for the sake of this playthrough, let's ask. He is the god of rebirth and redemption, formerly anyhow. Maybe they call him something different where you're from. I had other questions. Why was your headman hanged? Got involved. Adir says, Radric sent men down here the other day. Said they had it on good authority someone in town was working with Kolsch, plotting Radric's overthrow. Said if he didn't come forward right then and there, they'd hang every last one of us. So Kolsch seems to be like a upstart, someone who is going to try and take over Radric's seat as ruler here. Adir continues, no one was coming forward. So Swithin, that's my headman, he steps up and says it's him. They took him at his word. He sighs and shakes his head, his eye fixed in the tree. Bound to happen sooner or later, if not for plotting against Radric, then for protecting me. Let's ask who Kolsch is. Someone who got tired of all the hangings. He's on the run now, probably will be till they catch him. And here we go. Yes, we should travel together, or we could travel together. Where are you headed? Someplace called Cadnua. There's an old watcher there who might be able to help me. That is the information we got from Caldara from hanging from the tree.
I seem to remember hearing something about that years ago. He tamed that place. People would seek him out for all kinds of things. Troubles of the soul, questions for the departed. Of course, that was back when you didn't have to say watcher with a hush on your breath.
So watchers have not always been mistrusted.
A man such as that, there'd be things I'd want to ask him. Don't know why I never thought of it before.
So we have an idea here that Adir would like to find things out from old souls.
Not sure how I feel about setting out with a stranger, and a strange one at that. But truth be told, you might be the only one in town who wouldn't feel some relief seeing me swing from that tree.
Aloth says there's a fine reason if I ever heard one.
All right then. Guess I'll do some sightseeing. Long as you're not the one picking the sights.
So let's get going. Alright. So now we have a deer. Let's take a look at him. He is a 3rd level fighter from the Meadowfolk race of humans. He is a farmer from the Deerwood. Here are some of his stats. His abilities are constant recovery. Charged to the rush of battle, the fighter will continually regenerate endurance at a modest rate. That's passive effect. He is a defender. That's a modal one. These are the ones that you can only have one up at the time. The fighter adopts a more conservative combat strategy, concentrating on locking down enemies that stray too close. The fighter increases his or her number of engagement targets to 3, but at the expense of deflection. So he can kind of tank, I guess. It's kind of like his tank mode. Fighting Spirit is a passive. All folk have an indomitable spirit that rises to the challenge when things look grim. Whenever a folk is below 50% endurance, they gain a bonus to accuracy and damage. So just kind of like sense death close, so you hone your senses. Knockdown, we've used knockdown before, just knocks the enemy down. And finally, Second Wind gives me a little bit more endurance. Talents are Rapid Recovery, modifies Constant Recovery, so it's upgrade to that constant recovery from before. Boost the fighter's hardiness, increasing the rate of his or her constant recovery. Okay, so we have a party now. It's not a full party. I think you can get up to 6 in this game. But we have me, we have Aloth, and we have Adir.
Hope you're not expecting much.
Let's change our formation over here. We'll do the triangle. I always like the triangle. Okay, so I think that's going to be it for today. We learned a lot about the people in Gilded Vale. We learned that we are a watcher. We have the ability to see souls from past and ask them about their past lives and see visions from their past lives. We learned a little bit about Widewind's legacy, who Widewind is, who is Aethys brought to life, basically. And we learned that there was a war that was started because of him, and he is blamed for the Hollowborn legacy. It's called the Widewind's legacy because they blame Widewind and his followers for that. We've read a couple books, and yeah, I think that's going to bring us to the end of this session. So thank you for watching, and I will hopefully be back shortly with some more Pillars of Eternity lore, and we'll see you then. Bye.